But Catherine de Medici also fell in love with it, and she took over the castle.
Imagine running in circles where you're just swapping castles.
Yeah, it's true.
I would need a sword. Hello and welcome to the Worldwide Honeymoon Travel Podcast, the podcast that talks about all things couples travel, including destinations, tips, advice, and more. I'm Chris.
I'm Kat.
And this is episode number 287.
And we've done a lot of travel planning lately, haven't we? Now that we're back home, we're back from our big trip, we're getting ready for more big trips. It's just the name of the game.
It's just the name of the game.
I guess. Well, honestly,
You love trip planning.
I was not...
Like hypothetical trip planning.
Oh, yeah. I love planning trips for years in advance. I'm not even sure I'm going to take. But...
Hold on. What is a trip that you have planned that you're like, man, this would be awesome, but I don't know if I'm ever going to take this trip?
Colombia, April 2020.
Okay. Like, have you planned, let me ask you this, because I know that I have thrown out, like trip ideas to, the Middle East. Mm-hmm. Do you have any Middle East trip itineraries out there or no?
I don't think I've ever made one. Because we've just never seriously talked about going, like planning and like booking things. Because usually when we start kind of like brainstorming those, I mean, I don't know. I also during 2020 had a whole spreadsheet with so many ideas.
You still have that spreadsheet?
I don't know where it's at. Like I haven't looked at it in a long time.
Oh, I've looked at it.
No, I have a current trip planning spreadsheet that I do, but I know that there's another one floating around somewhere that I had like all these different trip ideas. So maybe there might be something on that. Because, like, I know we talked about, like, going to Jordan would be cool. Or going to, like, Egypt or, like, Dubai or something eventually. But, yeah. So maybe. I don't know. I just don't remember us, like, talking that much about it to where I bet you I have, like, a small trip plan for Egypt or something. Like, somewhere on a spreadsheet.
I think I set forth quite the Egyptian trip in whatever series we did last. Remember the ones that were like, you need to take a backup vehicle?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Just in case, because you're out in the desert. And
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
I do fashion myself as a bit of an adventurer.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I did, like, I think I've planned a trip, like a full trip to Argentina that we never have, like, booked or taken, but it was something that we'd talked about, like, going in the near future and doing like Patagonia and like Tierra del Fuego and like, you know, Iguazu Falls and different things like that.
What about Antarctica?
I have not priced out that yet because every time I just look at the price, the sticker shock is enough to make me be like, I don't think we're ready. But we've taken some pretty expensive trips, but I also feel like Antarctica on its own, to really experience it, you need to go on a cruise. Like you got to do on a cruise that goes on land and everything's so expensive. It's like $1,000 if you want to go kayaking in Antarctica. If you want to camp overnight, it's like another $1,000 on top of the cruise, which is already like $12,000 a person or something.
Hold on, when you're talking about
like that's
camping,
like a $30,000 trip, and that's just to go to Antarctica. That's not even like to explore. I mean, I'm sure you could probably with $30,000 explore like Argentina too a little bit, but like the price of it alone, I'm just like I can't.
That's a big one.
It's just hard to be like, well, let's plan this one because I'm like, I have no hope of like paying for that right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Let me ask you this. So the $1,000 like that you threw out there for camping, is that instead of spending a night on the boat, you spend a night on land?
Yeah. And instead of just like, I don't know. It's just like, it's like an additional thing to sleep in a sleeping bag.
So let me ask you this. My guess is that these are not luxury tents. Like
you're not in
lodge
a tent.
life.
You're just lying on the ice.
No, you have to be in a tent.
Yes. No. I think you're just sleeping on the ice.
You are not. No.
Ice, like,
there has to be some sort of shelter, Catherine.
I don't think so. Well, because you're going in the summertime because they only do these cruises in the Antarctic summertime.
Yeah, I know that, but
yeah,
they're just putting you out under the stars. No shelter.
I believe. I mean, you have like a very thick sleeping bag. But like there's no predators on land there.
Well, I'm not worried about predators.
Yeah, but like what are you worried about then?
Also,
you're
if I'm
protected
remembering,
from the elements in your sleeping
hold
bag.
on. Speaking of predators, if I'm remembering correctly, I believe Alien versus Predator may have started in Antarctica,
Okay.
some sort of Arctic place.
Okay.
Hold
anyway,
on.
regardless, we don't need to continue on this. We're not even discussing going right now.
I
That's
know,
like
but I'm
not
just
even at the top of our. I mean, is it a place we definitely want to go to one day for sure? But
I'm trying to wrap my
those
head
costs
around
are-
the fact that I could be very happily sleeping. I'm a sound sleeper too. Not a lot wakes me.
Are you kidding me?
No.
I feel like everything wakes you in the night.
Nothing wakes me in the night. I'm very alert.
Because if
during
I
the
drop
day.
something or whatever, you're like, "What's that?"
That's during the day.
No, well, that's all the time.
I am very alert.
Yeah.
All the time. Except at the
Meerkat
night.
Chris.
I could just see myself having a nice Antarctic sleep and floating away.
Well, no, you're on the mainland. Like you're on the peninsula.
Okay.
So it's not like you're on a ice sheet that's floating away.
There has to be some sort of shelter.
I don't think so. I don't know. Honestly, I haven't looked into it that much other than videos because
Can you look into it before
every
we record
December and
next?
January on TikTok, you are going to see a slew of people post their Antarctica videos, and you're like, "Oh, wow," because that's the time of year everyone goes. So that's when those all pop up around January, December, maybe February. So I'll be sure to like take notes. But I believe I've seen a few people that were like they don't really recommend it because you're not like in a shelter or anything. It's like you don't really get that good night's sleep. Like it's not that comfortable.
I would love to know if anyone listening has been to Antarctica and slept on land, and if you have shelter.
Mm-hmm.
This is the type of thing where like I get in my head about it and I'm like, man, I have to do it, right? It's offered.
Okay.
Because if I'm sleeping on a boat, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you have a mattress. You're already paying over $1,000 a night just to sleep on that mattress on the boat.
And that's on like a scientific ship.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, as a scientist myself, what do you mean, okay?
No, I guess you are.
You guess.
You like...
The fine folks at my undergraduate institution conferred a paper that says that I am an accredited scientist.
Oh, good.
So, I'll probably be yucking it up with the rest of them.
You weren't a biologist. You did chemistry.
I had some biology work.
Okay.
Microbiology work. In fact, this is
so you know not to lick the ice.
You have to do that.
With the microbiology?
You have to do that if you're in Antarctica,
kind of crazy
right?
viruses that you don't know that are all just frozen down there, you know?
I thought you were saying about like don't get your tongue stuck to Antarctica.
Well, that too. Okay, that's enough Antarctica. But no, we're finishing up.
My goodness, with all due apologies to Antarctica.
No, it's just
I'm done talking about it.
Turns out that's one that Christopher, I suppose, wants a budget for, because and whether or not you sleep on land or under a shelter on Antarctica.
I really want to know the answer to that question.
Look, would I probably do it? Yes. Am I going to sleep at all? Probably not.
Which means I'm not going to sleep at all because you're going to be like, hey, psst.
No. I'll just be
Yes.
sitting there in fear. It's not the first time I've done that. The first night.
What?
The first night at Tampapata Research Center in the Amazon with a 3-walled lodge. And I believe we had separate beds. So I didn't sleep at all.
Yeah, we did.
And then also the night where we were in Uganda at Queen Elizabeth National Park, and we also didn't have this, like we had separate beds, and our tent was literally just a screen to keep bugs out and like half canvas, and I could hear loud noises from outside our tent all night, and I was like, please don't kill me.
My favorite part of both of those experiences is
that we weren't sleeping in the same bed.
No, is that we're out in the middle of like the bush or the jungle, which means that there's bugs. And what are bugs attracted to?
Light.
Light.
That's why I'm just sitting there.
No, you would flip on the light.
No.
Too.
Well, in the Amazon you couldn't because they didn't have electricity in the middle of the night. And then in Uganda, I did have I was like, well, I'll read on my Kindle. No, I had my Kindle on because I was like, I'll just read if I can't sleep. And then, of course, the little buggies are attracted to that. So, like, I had all the, like, tiny little gnats trying to get on my Kindle.
I did feel bad about the one in Queen Elizabeth because I remember specifically you waking me up and saying, there's something massive outside of our tent. And I was like, no, there's not. Just go back to bed. You're going to be fine. And then the very next day we wake up and there is a gigantic pile of buffalo dung.
Yeah.
Right out. Like if I wasn't looking, I mean, it might as well have been a welcome mat going into the tent.
Yeah.
And then you were like, see?
Okay. All right. So that's enough of that. Some sleepless nights.
But in all seriousness, I would like to know if anyone has slept on Antarctica, if it has shelter or not. How was it? I'm curious.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for updates and stuff. Other than if you guys haven't, you can check us out on Substack or follow France Travel Tips. It's a group on Facebook that I started for people asking, answering questions about France. That's just gotten started up, so I'm really excited about that. But those are some updates.
Yay,
what was
Catherine.
your highlight?
From this past week?
Mm-hmm.
Man. What was my highlight from this past week? So many are just flooding to mind. I will say that I was really proud of our cat professor at the vet.
Oh, yes.
He did very well.
He went for his annual, and he has to have medications to calm him down for his visits, and he actually did really well.
He did do really well.
Yeah, no hissing. He did great.
No, I was very proud of him.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we went to a party on Saturday. Well, just kind of like a dinner party thing.
Yeah, that was a lot
with
of fun
friends.
as well.
That was a lot of fun too. Yeah. So that was some highlights for the week.
Yeah. So back to Antarctica.
No, what are we actually talking about in this episode?
Today you are going to be talking all about Antarctica.
No, travel to the Loire Valley in France. We can probably do a whole other episode about all your little travel thoughts, Christopher.
That would be actually probably a very interesting episode. Just rapid fire.
Maybe that one might be one for the Substack. I'll just let you go. I'll just put you on a microphone and let you say all the things you need to say about travel, and I'll just throw that up on Substack. And you guys can maybe listen to that one day. I'll let you know when that one's live.
Some of the beautiful things about my travel thoughts.
Okay, Christopher, save it for the Substack. But travel to the Loire Valley in France. Let's talk about it. I spent several days in the Loire Valley with two of my friends back in May. We spent a couple days in Paris, then went to the Loire Valley for I think 4 or 5 days, and then we went to Stockholm for the Eras tour, and then I came back to France to Deauville for a wedding, and then I came home. So I was gone for quite a bit in May, and we really haven't talked much about it. That whole trip, other than I think I did an Eras tour episode. So let's talk about going to the Loire Valley and an itinerary for the Loire Valley. But first up, what is the Loire Valley? It's actually sort of in the heart of France, and it comprises the administrative regions of Pays de la Loire and the Central Val de Loire. And it actually stretches all the way out to the Atlantic, which is pretty cool. There's even a bike path that goes from, I believe, Orléans all the way out to the Atlantic that you can take, which is pretty neat. But there's prehistoric evidence of people habitating in the Loire Valley, so it's got lots and lots of history. And it's mostly known these days for its many, many chateaux and delicious white wines, such as Sancerre, that you might be familiar with. So Sauvignon Blanc, lots of different ones. There are some red wines as well that you can get, but I think most people, when they think of Loire Valley wines, they think of Sancerre, which is part of the Loire Valley. Why are there so many chateaux in the Loire Valley? I feel like around Europe in general, there are just chateaux sort of dotted across the entire continent that have been around for ages and ages for protection and things like that. But while there were tons of chateaux already sort of built, or fortresses sort of built way back when in the Middle Ages, I would say that the 100 Years' War was certainly a big time where more of these fortresses were built. So the 100 Years' War, it lasted between 1337 to 1453, at least officially. It lasted kind of longer than that on either end, with France and England basically fighting back and forth over land. And it was a significant chunk of land in France, and just like whether or not you could be king and queen of England and France, and all, it was just a whole mess. And I can't possibly dive into all of it in one episode, but obviously with all that fighting, they needed lots of fortresses and places to protect themselves, protect their goods, that sort of thing. And that's where a lot of these fortresses really started to be built, because the Loire Valley was a big chunk of that disputed land. In fact, actually, if you go to Orléans in the Loire Valley, Joan of Arc there is quite a big deal there, because that is where she stayed and helped with an army rescue Orléans from the British from the English who had besieged the city. And so she was able to save them from that. So quite celebrated there in Orléans, Joan of Arc and stuff. So yeah, so that's kind of a little context of why there were some of these fortresses built during that time. Then, shortly after the 100 Years' War, France also went to war with Italy. Not really sure what all happened there. Again, history can be quite complicated, and I can't cover everything in this episode. But during that time, France was exposed to the Italian Renaissance, and that's when the French Renaissance happened. And it was during this time that the royal court was based in the Loire Valley. And as such, they wanted fabulous places to live. That's where all the elaborate gardens came into play. That's where all the beautiful, like the beautification of all these chateaux and fortresses that turned them into these elaborate castles that you see today sort of mostly happened during the French Renaissance. And so I think I'm going to dive into the itinerary first, and then we can talk about logistics later, because I have like a whole section I can talk about where we stayed in the Loire Valley, because it's quite a funny story. If you haven't heard it, I can't remember if I've said it on this episode or not, or in this podcast or not, but we'll talk about that later. But day one, I recommend renting a car to go to the Loire Valley. There are places that you could catch a train, like Amboise or Blois or Tours. But it's much easier to have a car to get around to see all the chateaux, because they're not, other than some that are like these royal fortresses within cities, most of them are in the middle of the countryside. So you kind of need a car to get to them. But first up, we rented a car out of Gare de Lyon in Paris and drove to the town of Valençay, which is about 2 hours and 45 minutes away. So we made it around lunchtime, ate lunch there, and then we did our first Loire Valley Chateau visit, Chateau de Valençay. And this one is not on a lot of itineraries, I've noticed, because it's a little bit further from the rest. A lot of them are sort of concentrated in a certain area that you can go visit pretty easily. But Valençay is a little bit further out. But it's really cool. The chateau, I really liked the dome towers at the chateau, which are really cool. Huge history here. It used to be a Gallo-Roman villa way back in the day. Like the ground that is on, not the chateau that's standing there now, was a Gallo-Roman villa, then a tower in the Middle Ages, and then potentially a feudal castle in the 1200s. But as you see it today, it is a beautiful chateau with most of its decor coming from the 18th and 19th centuries. And fun fact here is where you can get Valençay cheese, which Loire Valley is actually quite famous for its goat cheese. So you'll see lots of chèvre cheese while you're there. And at Valençay is where you can get Valençay cheese, which is a truncated pyramid goat cheese. And so the rumor is that it, instead of it being a pyramid, there's a story of why it's a truncated pyramid, essentially. So
does that have to do with Napoleon?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll throw out my little fun cheese fact about Chateau de Valençay, was that Napoleon came to Chateau de Valençay after he kind of had a failed campaign in Egypt. And he saw Valençay being served, the cheese, and saw that it was a pyramid, and apparently it angered him. And he took out his sword and he chopped off the head of the cheese, and now it's a truncated pyramid, and they've just kept it that way since then. Now, we have no idea can't verify whether or not that's true. It's just a fun story, but that's the legend that comes around Valençay cheese at Chateau de Valençay.
I'll go ahead and confirm it.
Okay. But another fun fact about Valençay is that during World War II, it actually hid works of art from the Louvre, including Venus de Milo and Winged Victory.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
They were stored there. Actually, a lot of these chateaux were used during either World War I as maybe a military hospital type thing, or World War II to actually hide artifacts and art from France, which is pretty cool. So fun thing. So that was really fun to get to do and walk around Valençay. The gardens are absolutely stunning. It was a really fun afternoon just walking around and getting to see that as our first chateau. And then from there, we just went to our chateau Airbnb for the night, which I will talk about later, and had dinner there.
At these chateaus, do they have a lot of like the history of it's a castle. So do they have a lot of the history of the castle, like the battles and that sort of thing, or?
I mean, it depends. Valençay, I don't think, was quite the battle. And again, most of these really famous ones these days were sort of, most of the bulk of their history is during the Renaissance. So it's not necessarily them fighting.
It's like private residences.
They became like royal residences.
No cannons.
Not necessarily. Yeah. Unless if you go to one of the fortresses, like Fortress de Chinon and that sort of thing. But anyway, so after that, day number 2, we actually stayed in an Airbnb near Toulouse and went to a local bakery, which was fantastic. I love going to like little bakeries in small towns. It was very delicious, but got fueled up for the day. And then we saw quite a few chateaux this day. And our Airbnb host actually, when he was checking us in, helped us map out this day, which was fantastic. So we started out going to Chateau de Valandry. And this place is well known for its gardens. So we didn't even go inside this chateau. It's absolutely stunning. It has many, many gardens, including a water garden, herb garden, kitchen garden. It has a whole woods section, ornamental gardens, and hedge mazes, which are a lot of fun to go in to walk through. So this place is beautiful. We were like a few weeks, I think, too early for when the red flowers were blooming, but the irises are blooming, the roses were starting to bloom. It was absolutely beautiful getting to walk around these gardens during that time. It was a really, really pretty place. So if you want to go see some beautiful gardens, I think Chateau de Valandry is going to be the top place for that. Next up, we drove down the road to Chateau d'Azay-le-Rideau, and this is actually known as an example of early French Renaissance architecture, because the big stairway out front or you can see the stairwell area is part of that architectural style, and it's really pretty. But it's actually a chateau that is on a small island in the Indre River. So that's really cool. It's in the middle of a river. It's this beautiful island with this giant chateau on it. And what's cool if you go inside here is you kind of start at the top and work your way down, but near the top, the apartments are the 16th century style, so you've got these reed-woven walls and the 4-poster beds, and it looks very Renaissance style. Then you work your way down to a 19th century apartments to show what it would have looked like in the 19th century with like a billiard room and a smoking room and different things like that. So it was really, really cool to get to see the comparisons between what it would have looked like in the 16th century versus the 19th century. So that was Chateau d'Azay-le-Rideau. After that, we went to a privately owned chateau called Chateau de l'Islette, which is adorable. You have to cross this little river and get to it on the other side. And it is actually known as the Love Castle for sculptors Camille Claudel and Auguste Rodin. They had part of their love affair here, and there's actually a couple of Claudel bronze sculptures on the property.
That is the Rodin Museum.
Rodin, yeah. That is that Rodin. This is his love castle. Where he had his affair with his mistress, Camille Claudel. So, yeah. But it's actually a privately owned residence. So people actually own that and live there, and they open it. I don't know if they live there permanently or somewhere else on the property, kind of like Highclere Castle.
Did you see what I just did?
Yes, you did the thinker. Good job. That was great.
I did the thinker pose when
you did.
I was like,
Yeah.
You know what? Never mind.
So yes, it is a privately owned chateau. They do open it certain days of the week or for a certain time frame and stuff. So it was cool to get to see that. And actually on nice days, you can rent a little boat and paddle out on the river next to the chateau. And it's really pretty.
The river or like a pond or a lake?
It's a river.
Did you do this?
No. When we went, the rivers were flooded because we originally were going to have a day where we did some kayaking, and that was all canceled because the rivers were flooded. Was it going to be a rowboat? It is a rowboat.
Is it a wide rowboat, or is it a, like, can you row
like
both
oars? It's like a 2-person rowboat where it's basically like the rowboat you think of in the movies where the guy's doing the rowing and the girl's sitting on the end with like a parasol.
Like in The Little Mermaid.
I don't remember that from The Little Mermaid, but I was thinking like...
That's the natural movie to mention when someone says a rowboat. What is your rowboat movie?
I don't know, Bridgerton?
Bridgerton isn't a movie.
Okay, anyway. So yes, you can do that there, but the gardens here are really pretty. It's just a really cute chateau to get to check out, and it's a little bit smaller, so you can go check it out pretty quickly. And then the last chateau that we saw this day, because we were really just checking out a lot of chateaus, is Chateau d'Us. And this is actually allegedly the castle that inspired Charles Perrault to write Sleeping Beauty. And so the exterior of the castle is absolutely stunning. It looks like the Sleeping Beauty castle you'd picture. And it's just very pretty. You can walk along the grounds. There's a chapel. There's like a farm area, all of that stuff. And actually in World War II, this place housed artifacts from the National Library. They were stored here. And I will say that it was fun to go outside and explore the gardens and the chateau from the outside. And it was nice to go inside, but there's the special exhibit about Sleeping Beauty. I would not waste your time doing that.
Princess Aurora?
Because it's just these creepy mannequins in like the attics. Because they basically, you can do the special exhibit here where you go up the tower and then they have like displays of creepy mannequins telling the story of Sleeping Beauty.
Do they have the spinning wheel?
Yes. The whole thing. The witch, the everything. And it's very like...
The 3 fairy godmothers?
I can't remember.
Do they have the leaning cake?
I don't remember. There was a lot.
But you would not recommend it?
I would not recommend it. The mannequins are kind of creepy, and you're just walking through the attics, and some of the attic stuff is just kind of strewn everywhere. It's sort of their excuse so you can like look in the attics, which are pretty cool, but at the same time, it definitely smells like bat poop. And
guano.
It smells like guano, and you can hear chirping, like... Yeah. And like, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable being that close to bats. So especially with the diseases that they carry and things. So like, it wasn't for me, to go up there. And the mannequins were kind of creepy. So it wasn't like a fun, like fairy tale retelling, I guess. So
and you know, the door locked behind you and
I was forced to touch the needle.
The needle.
Yeah.
Nothing like needles and bats.
Christopher had to fly over and give me a kiss to wake me up. So
well
okay,
slay a dragon with the sword that I'm still not allowed to have.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was really cool to get to check out Chateau d'Us, and then after that we went into Chinon for dinner, and from there we could see Fortress Royale de Chinon from the top. It was closed, so we couldn't go in it, but you can still see it from the town. But it was kind of neat to see that. The fun fact about Fortress Royale de Chinon was actually where Joan of Arc visited Charles VII to request that army to help out with the siege in Orleans. But yeah, so it was kind of cool. We went to Chinon, and then after that, we went back to our Airbnb. And then our last full day in the Loire Valley, we spent this day at Chateau de Chenonceau. So we spent the bulk of the day here because this is a gigantic castle. It's the second largest castle in the Loire Valley. And it's known as the Lady Castle. And Christopher, you've been here.
I have.
Because we did an episode a long time ago about best day trips from Paris. And then we talked about our trip to the Loire Valley.
I really liked this castle.
Yeah, I do too. It's one of the best castles for a good reason. It is a beautiful castle because, and it's certainly, I think it's the most beautiful castle.
It has very nice archways.
Yes, because it is actually part castle, part bridge.
Yes.
Because it bridges over the Cher River.
A pont.
Pont, oui.
Pont.
Yeah. And it has these beautiful gardens
bridge
on either side. But you can spend all day here. There are tons of gardens to check out. There's like a farm area.
Wasn't there like a winery?
There's a winery. There's the chateau. There's so much that you can see and do here that it's worth spending a good chunk of your day. So we did this on day 3. Some history. In 1535, it was taken as part of the crown estate to King Henry II, who gave it to his mistress, Diane de Poitiers, which Catherine de Medici, his wife, was not happy about. But she absolutely loved this chateau. She was the one who actually commissioned the bridge over the Cher River, or the River Cher, and she started the gardens to the left of the castle. These are the really elaborate gardens with the flowers everywhere and like the swirly little designs and stuff. It's like this stunning, beautiful garden. And we went in May when everything was blooming and it smelled so good. It was just delightful. So that's to the left of the chateau. And then she built the bridge. And then when King Henry II died, Queen Catherine de Medici basically forced Diane de Poitiers to give it to her in exchange for Chateau de Chaumont-sur-Loire, which she did not love nearly as much because Chateau de Chenonceau is adorable and beautiful, and I can see why she fell in love with it. But Catherine de Medici also fell in love with it, and she took over the castle.
Imagine running in circles where you're just swapping castles.
Yeah, it's true.
They would need a sword.
Okay.
What's the next one?
But yeah, so and then here, she actually was the one who built the galleries over the bridge, so making it all like enclosed as part of the castle.
It really is gorgeous.
And then she made the gardens to the right because she couldn't be outdone by Catherine de Medici, or sorry, Diane de Poitiers, even though I like her gardens better. But the Medici gardens are also very, very pretty. But it's also known as Lady Castle for many other women that had been part of its history, including Louise Dupont, the Lady of Enlightenment, Madame Pelouse, and just lots of other ladies that have helped over time. In World War II, fun fact, this acted as a military hospital. Or World War I, it was a military hospital. In World War II, this was used as access to the free zone on the other side of the river. And I do believe it was once taken over by the Nazis, and then it kind of went back and forth between France and like the resistance and the Nazis and different things like that. So quite a lot of history there. And actually in the summertime, you'll actually see people kayaking underneath of it because it is a bridge and it's on a river. So you'll see people kayaking. We were supposed to, but sadly we couldn't because the river was too high. But yeah, I mean, you could spend a lot of time here exploring and then ending in the gardens or in the winery where you can try some of their own wine, which is pretty cool. But speaking of wine, after spending a good chunk of time at Chateau de Chenonceau, you can head into Amboise, and we did a tour and wine tasting at Caves Ambassia, where you get to walk through 15th century wine caves, and then you get to try a bunch of different Loire Valley wines and learn more about it, and it gets paired with cheese and meats and different things like that. So it was really cool to get to taste different wines and what they pair with, and learn more about the Loire Valley wines. It was really, really cool. After that, you're in Amboise, and you can see Chateau d'Amboise, which it was probably be closed by this time after seeing Chenonceau and then going to this wine cave. But you can still see it because it towers over the town and it's absolutely stunning. And we actually went to a wine bar, just kind of on the main street there, and got to admire the chateau from there before going to dinner. And fun fact about Chateau d'Amboise is it's where the tomb of Leonardo da Vinci actually is. It's in the chapel there. Yes, because he lived the last several years of his life in the Loire Valley.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
Prior to this trip?
Prior to this trip, no.
Oh, well,
I knew that he had visited, but I believe one of the royals actually, I think he stayed at a chateau.
Your knowledge of French history.
He was living in a chateau at the end of his life. He was staying with like a royal at their chateau or whatever and was like creating art for them. And then he passed. And
I
then
plan
he was
to do the
buried
same
in France. Yeah.
I plan to do the same. Your knowledge of French history is very impressive.
I try. There's a lot. I am listening to a podcast right now that's called Revolutions. I think it's a pretty famous podcast, but they have a French Revolution one that I'm not entirely through at all by any means because it's like several episodes in a series, but it's pretty interesting. But yeah, which has nothing to do with any of these really. Although I will say that a lot of these did sort of have a part in the revolution, especially Chateau de Chambord was kind of emptied out during the revolution. Chateau de Chenonceau was actually saved during the French Revolution.
As it should be.
Because it was one of the closest, like, there weren't a lot of bridges over the Cher River, and it was like, well, this is a bridge please don't tear down this bridge. It's how people can get across to the other side. And that's how it was kind of saved during that time. But anyway, I'm on a bit of a tangent. So at the end of day 3, I just recommend grabbing dinner at a place called Chez Oscar and Suzette, and it's along the river in Amboise. And it's really cool because it has like a sandy bar area if you want to do that, or it just has really good like sandwiches and drinks and things like that. So it's a lot of fun to check out. But day 4, this is when you're heading back to Paris or wherever you're coming from. And actually, we use day 4 as sort of a transition day between the heart of the Loire Valley and Paris. But we went to Chateau de Chaumont-sur-Loire, which is, again, the castle that Diane de Poitiers was kind of forced to take in exchange for Chenonceau. And this place also has extensive gardens. And I think what makes this chateau really, really cool is the fact that it has so much art. So they have an art season each year from March through October, but they also have lots of permanent art installations just around the entire place, inside the castle, on the grounds of the castle, in the stable area, in the gardens. It's so cool to check out. And the gardens are absolutely lovely. I think what I really enjoyed on this visit was going up to the attics. There's this artist called Quayola who has this beautiful digital art display of sort of like these colors sort of swirling around with classical music in the background, and then it'll stop and be a picture, and it'll be pictures of flowers and different things like that, and it's really, really cool to check out. But after that, you can head back to Paris or go to Orléans, which is where we went to learn more about Joan of Arc, and did a couple things in Orléans, like the Maison Jeanne d'Arc, which is where she stayed during her time there. The Cathedral Sainte Croix d'Orléans, which was where she prayed during that time, and there's some stained glass windows over there. There's the statue of Jeanne d'Arc at the Place du Martroi, and then the Musée Historique and Archéologique d'Orléans, which has some Joan of Arc stuff in there too, but also history of Orléans over the years. So you can do that if you want to, or you can just go straight to Paris and call it a day. But those are how to spend 4 days in the Loire Valley. And if you do have some more time, I would recommend trying to kayak or do something like that if you can. There's biking that you can do in the Loire Valley. You could go to Chateau Chambord, which is actually the largest chateau in the Loire Valley, which Christopher has been to, but we didn't make it on this trip. It was part of our day trip from the Loire Valley, or to the Loire Valley from Paris.
The Beauty and the Beast castle.
Yes, that's Chateau du Chambord.
Yes.
Yes, or you could do more wine tasting because this is a wine region in France. So you could sign up and do a wine group tour or something like that. But those are things to do.
What was your favorite part of this?
Oh, goodness. I mean, I would say Chateau de Chenonceau is always very, very lovely.
Easy.
It's so, yeah. I mean, again, we spent so much time, and I'm so glad that I was able to go back just sort of on my own, and like I parked there versus like a group tour, because you have so much, you only have like, I think they only gave us like 2 hours.
Weren't you guys supposed to kayak too?
We were. That's why I'm suggesting if you have more time.
Right.
Or you don't want to see that many chateaus, because I get it. You might get a little burnt out. Instead, maybe do a morning where you go kayaking or something like that. Or have one of these days, maybe day 4, if you want to extend your stay in the Loire Valley and stay down there, you can do like a kayaking wine tour. Not at the same time, but kayak tour, wine tour, that sort of, whatever you want to do. But kayak in the morning, maybe wine tour in the afternoon, that sort of thing. If you want to break up maybe all the chateau sightseeing, if you don't want to do that. But yes, we originally were going to spend a morning kayaking down one of the rivers, the Cher River, in fact, because we were going to be kayaking underneath of Chenonceau. But unfortunately, this past spring, they had so much flooding and so much rainfall that it just wasn't safe. So they canceled all of those kayak tours during that time. But anyway, that's the Loire Valley. Just some tips on when to visit. I would say like May through October is probably when you're going to have the best weather for it. I personally really liked May. It wasn't crowded at all, especially visiting places like Chateau de Chenonceau during the week, because the weekends can get pretty busy, but during the week it's nice. And then also the September to October timeframe are going to be a little less busy than the summertime when people are on vacation and things like that. And then where to stay? We stayed at a chateau Airbnb, and we found it. It's called the Châtelet. It's absolutely stunning. It is, I think it's from the 1500s. It's a very, very old castle, and it's actually owned by the same family for the last 300 years. So really cool, this historical place. They're doing a lot of work renovating it, and it's great. It has 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms along with that. There's a kitchen, it's got, obviously all the electricity, kitchen, laundry, all that great stuff. Obviously not AC because it's really, really old and it wouldn't make sense. But I will say that we did have a bit of a bat problem while we were there. The first night, so the way that the chateau was laid out was that you kind of entered, because it was on a moat, which was pretty cool. So you entered through, the bottom floor had kind of had like these 4 turret sections at the bottom, and like one of them was like a cafe area, the other was the kitchen. Then the other one was a laundry area, and then the main part was the living room, and then you had to go outside to the other turret and go up the steps. And then above the main floor, there were 2 additional floors, and each one was like a bedroom area. And then there was a chapel attached to it that also was turned into a bedroom. So that's where the 3 bedrooms are. And the first night, I was in the top bedroom on the top floor. It's great, no problems whatsoever. The next day, I left one of the windows open to kind of air out since there was no air conditioning. And I was like, you know what, I'll just leave the window open, let some fresh air in, because it did get a little stagnant that night. And when we had gotten in the night before, the windows were open and it was fine. I just shut them before bed and it was great. Well, come home after a long day of sightseeing and noticed in the reading nook area of my room, which was in one of the turrets, there was bat poop, like definitely guano. Like it was too big to be a mouse. Really didn't want it to be a rat, but I was like almost 99% sure it was guano because there were attics above me and I was like, I don't know about this. And so I shut the door and I was like, you know what? I'm not messing with this. So I moved in with my friend Megan in the chapel. And I was like, can I just bunk with you? She was like, cool. I got kind of creeped out being alone here in the chapel. And I was like, sweet. I'll be with you then. And so that was the end of that. No big deal. We were like, okay, whatever. And then the next day we get back from sightseeing and I went to go check on the room just to make sure I didn't leave anything behind because we were leaving the next day. And I thought I saw something out of the corner of my eye, like something fly. But I was like, maybe it's a moth. Maybe it's like, fly or something. I don't know. So I left. I go back to the chapel and I get a text from my other friend who's staying in the bedroom below me saying, holy crap, there's a bat flying around in my room. And that's when we confirmed that it was definitely a bat. And so we threw the windows open, ran away, and came back later and the bat wasn't in there. But by then she was like, I'm not doing this. So she ended up sleeping on the couch in the living room. And then I bunked with Megan in the chapel. And basically we got kicked out of 2 of the bedrooms, thanks to the bats. And,
nature always wins.
Turns out there's not a lot you can do about it in the Loire Valley because they're a protected species. And the most you can do is try to deter them from getting in. So
how did you deter them?
I don't know. I think they were already there when we got there.
Okay.
Yeah. So, just a fair warning there. It was very rustic in that way. It was a bit rustic to begin with, but that made it a little extra rustic. So, I also, the Airbnb reviews mentioned nothing about bats or any sort of critter. So I don't know if it was just an us problem, if that bat just decided to make its way in during that time. But, yeah, that's kind of what happened. So I don't necessarily recommend it. It was really, really cool, but didn't love the bat situation. So instead, there are actually some great chateau hotels you can actually stay in that are renovated and are much less rustic and, as far as I know, bat-free. There's Chateau d'Artigny, Chateau Rochecotte, and then Chateau de Beauvoir are some nice chateaus that you can stay in that are actually converted into hotels and a lot less rustic. Yeah, hopefully no bats, but that was a funny story about the bats. It was very unexpected because we were so excited to stay here and take photos. We're like, oh, it's so sick. We have our own chateau, 500-year-old castle. It's on a moat. There's this whole back garden area. It's so cool. And then the bats were like,
not today.
Not today. But that's okay. Turned out okay.
Good.
Yeah. Any questions about visiting the Loire Valley?
I don't think so. I asked you what one was your favorite. Well, actually, is it a place that you would go back to?
Yeah.
having seen it.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I don't necessarily need to go back to all the chateaus I went to, but I would love to see maybe a couple more chateaus, actually get to kayak on the river.
You love chateaus.
And then, well, it'd be neat to stay in a chateau hotel, too.
Yeah, it would
And
be.
then, like, it would be a fun little getaway from Paris because it's not too far from Paris that you could easily do on, like, a weekend if you wanted to. And then see a couple chateaus, drink some wine, that sort of thing. Yeah. But that's the Loire Valley and how to spend some time there. Yeah?
I have an update
Okay.
from the top of the episode.
Oh, no.
Now, I am still interested in people's experiences about sleeping on land in Antarctica. But I found a website, swoop-antarctica.com, that says camping in Antarctica takes one of two forms. They say that a small number of ships have like the tent, like small tent camping.
I was in Girl Scouts. I know how to pitch a tent.
I mean, something.
Christopher's never camped.
I have too.
You stayed once on Put-in Bay in a tent on an air mattress that was already set up for you when you arrived.
I can't help it that my hosts were incredibly hospitable.
One night. That is all you did.
Okay, you know what, Catherine? The other option here, which is far more common, do you want to hear this?
Yeah.
Here, you're going to dig a human-sized hole before sleeping in a bag.
And you get to pay $1,000 for that privilege to dig your own hole.
To dig your own grave.
And then lay in it for a night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Camping
but then you
is
can
not
say you've slept there.
camping is not the most restful experience, it says.
Yeah.
I'm still curious if anyone's done it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, on
That's
that note,
it.
if you guys have any questions or concerns, I actually have a whole blog post about this itinerary and lots of blog posts about the Loire Valley now on France Voyager that I will link here in the description of the episode that you can check out more if you'd like to. But if you want to reach out to us, we are always available on Instagram at Worldwide Honeymoon, at WW Honeymoon, or cat at worldwidehoneymoon.com. You can email me there. But thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to rate and review our podcast. It takes less than a few minutes and really helps other people find us. Also, if you're enjoying this awesome free information on both the blog and podcast, when you're booking your next trip, head over to worldwidehoneymoon.com/resources and use the links provided. We earn a small commission at no cost to you when you book through these links, and these are all brands and companies we know, love, and use, like Skyscanner for finding the best flight prices, World Nomads for the best travel insurance, TripAdvisor for hotel bookings and reviews, and even Amazon for all of your travel purchases.
Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Wherever you are, wherever you go, remember to make every day a worldwide honeymoon.